Let's kick off the afternoon then here on the main stage with a keynote on negotiating the energy transition, how to capture value and secure advantage with advanced nuclear. And for this, we're going to welcome Emily Bolon, the expert negotiator and Chief Commercial Officer at Blykalla. Emily, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everybody. We are living through a period of great uncertainty. Yet, even against the backdrop of uncertainty, many are waiting. By 2030, in Europe, we know that data centers will account for about a quarter of new energy demand. And one facility alone can require anything from 50 to 500 megawatts of energy. That's the equivalent of tens of thousands of households. Yet, people still stand by the sidelines, waiting for geopolitical clarity, waiting for clarity with regulations, waiting for cost curves to come down. The problem is that by the time clarity arrives, it's too late. Value has already been taken. Now, we have been making real progress. We have been making real progress when it comes to advanced nuclear. We're no longer talking about the nuclear of yesterday. With advanced designs, which we call Generation 4, we've designed very differently. For example, when we use lead as a coolant to replace water with liquid metal, we can operate under atmospheric pressure instead of under high pressure. What does that enable? It enables, first, faster build time going from 7-8 years down to more like 2 years. Second, it enables inherent safety. It's designed for safety with lead. And third, it enables a closed fuel cycle, which leads to much more efficient use of uranium as a fuel. So the tech is moving, the technology is there, the capability is there. So what is missing? What is behind the waiting? I would argue that what's behind the waiting is a lack of coordination. It's a lack of commercial alignment, and it's a lack of boldness. It's a lack of boldness that will enable those who do act strategically to capture value, because the value will not sit with those who are waiting patiently at the sidelines. That's what I want to talk about today, how to think of this as an early mover, whether you're an investor, whether you're an off-taker, or whether you're a developer like Blykalla. I'll start with an example to make this quite concrete. Imagine a hyperscaler in Northern Europe where power demand is going through the roof. There are grid constraints, volatile prices, and pressure to decarbonize. The conventional wisdom would be to wait to invest in advanced nuclear until the technology is more proven, bankable, wait until someone else builds first. But imagine that this hyperscaler thinks differently and engages in, for example, a PPA, co-participates in site development, and maybe even comes into the equity table in some way. What's the result? Well, the result is that investors then have much more confidence, the project moves forward, regulators see momentum, and so even though nothing has changed technically, everything has changed commercially. What does the hyperscaler get out of this by being the bold early mover? The hyperscaler gets access to future clean baseload power priced now before scarcity has set in. And they also get the ability to influence the shape of how the development trajectory occurs. So value here is created not due to the risks themselves disappearing, but rather by early movers entering and negotiating differently, because every player has something that others in the system need. And by moving early, you can trade what you're contributing in and get back disproportionate value. So we'll look at this now through the perspective of developers, investors, and hyperscalers themselves. When we think about developers, we face two main constraints. The first, of course, is capital, the balance sheet. And the other is the first-of-a-kind investment required. But we have a strength that the other stakeholders lack. What we have, indeed, is the supply of scarce, clean, future baseload. If we move early, entering into agreements already now, we can have anchor customers, and we can also bring in strategic capital. Of course, hesitation is understandable. When going from FOEC to NOEC, the cost curves are still unknown to a certain extent, or we could say that they're difficult to quantify. The tech is evolving very quickly. But by the time projects are fully de-risked, the market sets the terms, and we as developers have less strategic control. And so the idea is early action and iteration rather than passivity and waiting. If we turn to the investor perspective, the constraints there are around risk visibility. But the strength that investors bring is the ability to unlock projects. By acting early, investors get to shape deal structures, they have access to the pipeline, and they enter at valuations that simply will not exist later. We at Blykalla have a partnership with a US SMR developer called Oklo. Oklo is now valued at something like $5 billion. When it had its SPAC 2 years ago, in May of 24, it was valued at $1 billion. And so that's 5 times increase just since it's been listed. And if you think about 10 years before that, the early VC investors who invested $5 or $10 million, they've made 100 times return on their investment. And so there's something about getting returns that come from shaping the terms. And finally, if we look at it from the perspective of off-takers too are sometimes told to wait. Focus on what can be done now, between now and 2030, rather than thinking about, okay, but what's going to happen in 2031, 32, and 33. And the strength that off-takers who are bold can bring now is that they can contribute demand certainty to this mix of strengths. By moving early, they get price stability, they get priority access, they get to be at the top of the order book now for what we know will be scarce resource soon. And also they get the ability to influence siting, influence where the project development occurs, and to create strong coalitions to make things happen faster. The cheapest clean energy you will ever get as an off-taker is one that you yourself help bring into existence. So this is actually not about risk, it's about trades. There's a negotiation framework called 3D negotiation, and the second dimension of negotiation focuses on expanding the size of the pie, creating value, and then capturing it. The way to expand the size of the pie is by making trades, trading what you're good at for what someone else is good at to create something bigger jointly. And so here in this slide, we can see value in advanced nuclear is negotiated, not discovered. So starting with the developers, we trade future baseload supply, and what we get is that certainty and the anchor demand and the terms over the long term. Investors trade that early capital and credibility, and what they receive for it is pipeline access, influence, and upside. And then finally, off-takers, as we said, it's price stability. It's that top of the order book phenomenon. And I will say there are some off-takers moving very boldly in this regard. And those are, we've heard these deal announcements now, but others really are taking that wait-and-see approach. And for now, that hasn't caught up with them. But I think the picture will be looking much differently in a few years' time. These trades only exist, indeed, while uncertainty is high. After that, you become a market taker rather than a market maker. So, in closing, I think the question is not whether advanced nuclear is ready or when will it be ready. That's not the question. The question is, when it is ready, will there still be any advantage left to be claimed? The winners will not be those who are waiting on the sidelines for certainty. The winners will be the one who used uncertainty to negotiate strategic advantage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. I think we've got time for a couple of questions, if anyone has any questions for Emily. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day here, Emily.